Welcome, you all. Hello, everybody. It's Baron Baptiste. This is a place where we can tell the truth and where the truth can be told, tearing down the walls of mediocrity in society and building a community of excellence and challenge the drift towards that mediocrity. If not here, where? David, how you doing, buddy?
Fantastic. Great to be with you again, Baron, as always.
Yeah. We have a really good question today. I think you'll find this one powerful, especially just given the current state of the world. So let's get right into it.
Yes.
So here it is. Thank you. Whoever sent this in, thank you as well. Oh, and you all listening, you please send your questions. You could send feedback, comments to disrupting the drift at baronbaptiste.com, disrupting the drift at baronbaptiste.com. Also, you can check out on YouTube. These episodes are posted twice a week on YouTube. Disrupt the drift on YouTube, disrupt the drift on YouTube. And comment, like the videos. That helps us, supports us in pushing it out to more and more people. Share the show. If you get some value, please share it. And okay, let's jump into it right here. So here it is. How can I break free from a lifetime pattern of conformity, particularly when facing strong personalities like my wife, my boss, and friends, certain friends, to stop feeling weak and start asserting my own desires and opinions? What's your take on it, David?
It is such a fundamental and essential question. And actually, real growth cannot occur unless this issue is addressed. And so the question is, well, what is the issue? Why is it that people feel weak? Why is it that you somehow cannot stand up for yourself without getting upset or angry? And the word that comes to my mind is resentment. Now, let me just read to you what the meaning of the word resentment is. Indignation or ill will stemming from feeling or having been wronged or offended. And the synonym to that is anger. So I went back and I looked at the etymology of the word resent, and you will not believe what you're about to hear. Consider as an injury or an affront, be in some degree angry or provoked at, and from the French ressentir, feel pain or regret, or to feel again and feel in turn. So what happens is that when you react with resentment toward, let's just say there is real injustice, and there is injustice all the time. When you react with anger or resentment, it embeds these experiences and these episodes in your subconscious mind, and then they circulate. They go round and round and round. And so every time...
ready to be reactivated.
Reactivated. That's a perfect way of looking at it, to feel again. So in a way, what people have to realize is this, is that, and it's very hard to do, to step back and be completely objective to resenting those people who are offending you and trying to manipulate and control you. It's easy to resent people because it makes you feel strong in that moment, but really, resentment is an inferior response to a moment in which you're being, treated improperly. It makes you actually inferior to the person that you're dealing with through resentment. Now, if you step back objectively and watch the resentment, forget about what the other person is doing, just for the sake of this discussion. It doesn't matter what the person is doing. And this is the hard part, because it does hurt. It goes right to your ego. And because the ego wants recognition, the ego wants to be seen the way we want people to see us. We want to be seen as having value and being, somebody of substance. And a lot of times people will try to diminish us without even knowing it. So step back for a minute and observe those people and forget about what they're doing or saying. Just watch the way you're reacting to them. And that's the secret of getting over feeling weak. Your thoughts?
Yeah, very good. That's fascinating, actually, because it's so core and fundamental to how human beings live.
Yeah.
I know if I look back at when I was like a teenager, I was a rebel, like full on rebel.
Mm-hmm.
And then what was I rebelling against? Well, I was rebelling against conformity, at school, following authority, following the rules, doing what I was supposed to be doing by, my parents, by teachers, by the law in general. So I was a rebel, but then guess what? A rebel against conformity. But then guess where I end up is in having conformed with a bunch of other rebels, and then we form our own little gang of cool kids that are rebelling against the man and rebelling against authority. But then you end up being like a bunch of other people. You're basically conformed with rebels. So you're not actually all that unique when you rebel. You're just conforming to something else. And here's my point. It's all a reaction. So you can conform and go along to get along and survive. It's all fundamentally, it's all survival. At the heart of it, it's surviving your environment, surviving life. And so you kind of figure out, okay, how am I going to survive here? And so some people conform, some people rebel, but it's all a reaction. It's all a reaction. It's unconscious. It's driven by something deeper. And I think one of the things that is deeper in human beings is a fundamental concern to look good in the eyes of others, the approval of others, to look good and to not look bad, to not look foolish. But you're going to, if you conform, you're going to look foolish to some people. Anyways, you're going to look foolish to all the rebels. If you rebel, you're going to look foolish to those who do conform. And so essentially, people are going to judge you anyhow, is my point. But we're hardwired for it. Or I don't know if it's a hardwiring or if it's a conditioning, something we're born with, or is it something we split from within ourselves at a very early age? Something happens and we split from we separate from our natural way of being, our essential self. And we then either, to survive, because being our natural, authentic, just original self, we don't get approval there. We get lots of rejection. So to survive, we figure it out. Okay, I'm either going to conform here or I'm going to become a rebel. But it's like the front and back of the hand. And to your point, it undercuts, so it's resentment is at the heart of it, the heartbeat of it. And the glue that keeps it all together is resentment. And resentment what's that saying, when you resent someone, it's like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. It's poison in your system. Right. It's a toxic emotion.
Yeah. And
you keep resent is how that word, and I love the definitions you brought forward. And to me, it's just right there, resentment. It's you keep resending this old, recycled energy that's incomplete, but it undercuts who you are. It undercuts your confidence. It undercuts your potential. It undercuts love. And in the place of love, resentment rises up and a whole other boatload of negative kind of emotions and malevolence and darker voices and forces have access to you.
Yeah, look, I want to address the issue of whether or not you're born with these proclivities because, see, we're born with the potential for all the various proclivities, whether it be, some people have more athletic capabilities than others naturally. But that's not what we're talking. We're talking about mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And so the question then goes to, and I'm actually writing a book about this called Outside In, which is it nature or nurture? And the answer is a combination of both. And so depending upon what kind of environment you came into and the way that you were treated by mom and dad, that will have an enormous effect on who you end up being 20 or 30 years later in your life. And so were you given the kind of love and attention and nurturing that helped you to become the kind of person that was independent and authentic and sort of, what's the word, resilient to criticisms and, and without groveling for love and attention and affection and approval? Or were you denied those things? And so really what happens is that in the nature and nurture equation, what we end up doing is we end up gravitating toward, believe it or not, the kind of people who caused us to have the problems that we have in the first place, because we're trying to find a sort of closure for what it is that's been missing in our lives all our lives. And so you think you find somebody that loves you and accepts you and sees you, as valuable and accepts you for who you are. But at the same time, here's the old adage is that familiarity breeds contempt. And so eventually you start a relationship with somebody, and then they start to become super familiar with, all of your needs and your wants and your desires and your dreams and your phobias and all the rest of it. And unfortunately, the average person does not know how to be objective to all this stuff. And listen, as objective as you can be, there are people that get on your nerves. There are people that are the repeaters, the constantly saying the same things over and over again, trying to enforce whatever their will is on you. And so the idea is that what you can do is that you can't change those people. So forget about changing those people. But you can change the way you deal with those people. You can change the way you respond to those people. And what really is the core of you getting better and stronger and getting away from this weak identity that's been established in you through repeated exposures to people that cause you to feel upset, and then you lose your perspective and you become subject and you're always feeling guilty, and then you're the one that always has to apologize. When you step back and you look at how the resentment begins to rise, because the resentment is a natural way of trying to feel strong when you're not. So just realize one thing: resentment isn't a strength. And there's an alternative to resentment, which is there's a righteous indignation that you can have, but that's it's a flash in the pan. It doesn't last long, and it doesn't leave an indelible impression in your mind. When you see something,
it's like a kid in the playground. Little children, if you watch them, when they get upset or they get angry, it comes up, and they, some other kid in the playground did something, they got upset. They cry it off, they shake it off, exactly. And then they move forward.
You got it. See,
adults hang on to it.
Well,
they stick around for.
But think about it. It is another domino in the domino effect, so that it is a sort of programming that we're fighting. So that every time we get to a point where, and I want to read this again because it's so great. Considered as an injury or an affront. Now, how many times do people, when they put you down or when they don't recognize something that you've done that has a value, how many times does that feel like an injury or an affront to your sense of who you are? Here's the second part of it. To be in some degree angry or provoked. How many people try to provoke you? I mean, there are all kinds of people that try to unconsciously themselves provoke you into a response of some sort. And then here's the third one from the French, ressentir, to feel pain, regret, or from the Old French, to feel again or to feel in turn. Now, these are buttons that get pushed, and the dominoes that keep falling are predicated upon the feeling of resentment that you get that comes up automatically, by the way. So it's a choice that you have to make about being resentful toward people. You actually have to say, wait a minute. No, I'm not going to do this again. And that's where you start to break the chain, the cycle of the domino effect of being upset and then ending up feeling like you're the person who failed, which you are in a manner of speaking, and then saying, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have reacted that way, and all the rest of it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Same old cycle.
Stop the vicious cycle. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, just two things come to mind is practice. The practice of meditation, sitting, getting still, and learning to watch your emotions, learning to watch your thoughts, learning to watch your body's sensations. Because as you learn to watch, you have more say in the matter. You'll notice that. You start noticing thoughts and as you actually watch thoughts, you see, oh, well, okay. A few moments ago, I was these thoughts, or I've been living as though I am my thoughts. And as you separate from thoughts and you observe, you start to see, well, okay, I have thoughts, but I'm not my thoughts. Okay, who am I? Well, I don't know, but I'm not my thoughts. You start seeing emotion, same kind of thing. You start saying, okay, I've got sadness, or I've got pain, or I've got resentment, and I've got different kinds of whatever emotions are present. But as you learn to watch, you see that, okay, I have emotions, but I'm not my emotions. And you, in this kind of separation, in this, the ability to bear witness is very powerful, because now you have say in the matter of who you are, or you're not subject to these just automatic reactions and reactivity that runs the show. The other thing, it's also the power of like a physical practice, whether that's taking a walk or doing physical yoga practice and getting in your breath, getting embodied, or, lifting weights, whatever, getting in nature, skiing, snowboarding, so like just being physically, not that any of those things are the answer, but what I'm pointing to is being connected to the physical universe, beginning with your own body. And then from your own physical body, physicality, you have the capacity to notice the physical world and observe the physical world, distinct from just living in the head, living in the imagination, but getting grounded, your feet on the earth. Like getting grounded is very, very powerful when your feet are grounded to the earth. And you have the ability to observe. That's a muscle, because I think that we've learned from such a young age to be resentful automatic. It's just automatic. We don't even do it. It just does us. It uses us. These old kind of patterns, habitual ways of being and acting that are unconscious. Well, it takes some training. It takes some, at least intentionality, coming from the right intent in your heart of knowing fundamentally there's another way for me to show up in my life to get a different kind of flow, a different kind of result, a different kind of access to who I actually am. I'm not this angry, resentful, blameful person. It's actually these forces seem to use me. But as you gain access to that observer self, your essential self, or your that inner knowing, in a moment, you can just stop, drop in to your body and fall awake and just wake up. And you start to see, like I know for myself, if I start getting reactive, I can step back, ground, and I notice, okay, my emotional feathers are ruffled, and I step back and I can literally, it's like these emotional feathers are just settling down. The muddy waters, it's a downset, right? I can go further into the upset, or I can actually reverse that flow and downset the mind and energy, the flow. So there's that. And the second thing I just want to point to is resentment, reactivity. It's all resistance to conform, to rebel, to be reactive in life. It's all resistance, and people are resisting all of the time. People resist everything, and typically people don't know that. It's just become natural to resist. But what you resist persists. Like what's unwanted in your life, situations, relationships, or like to the question here that this person brought forward, if you keep resisting, you are actually reinforcing what you don't want. And that is people having power over you, and then you bending your knees and giving in, and then left in the experience of being weak and unseen, unheard, and shrunk. So there's something about noticing, beginning to really watch and notice. You resist all over the place, resist, and then notice the impact, the repercussions of living a resistant, a life of resistance. Yeah, on your body, your mind, your energy, your being. It's exhausting. It's a bleed out.
Yeah, I want to address the concept, though, going back a little bit, is do you have resentment or does resentment have you? And if you think about it objectively, one of the biggest problems that people do is they identify with the problem. And I've said this many times, but you see, if you had the problem, it would be like having a club foot. Let's just use that as an example. If you have a club foot, you actually have a club foot. But a feeling is not necessarily the same as a condition. In other words, if you have a physical condition, you have the physical condition. But if you have a feeling, well, the question is, do you really have that feeling, or does that feeling have you? And
you're experiencing a feeling, but that doesn't mean it's grounded in what's real.
Well, that's the point. You see, and what I think people don't quite grasp is that if they believe that the problem is them, then they struggle with the problem, and it would be like trying to overcome a disability. And then you have to have mechanisms through which you overcome disabilities. And some people end up having to use a wheelchair or walking devices. And as people get older, they need walkers because they do have these disabilities. But the idea that you have a disability, and you know, there's a classic description of that, which is called Munchausen's by proxy, in which a person is sort of used in a way and a condition is imposed upon them in a belief system. And so there are people who accept that belief system, and from accepting that belief, they begin to give power to the condition itself by believing in the condition itself. And so if you take away the belief in the idea of the condition, which is not an actual condition, but it is a sense of something, now then the question goes to, well, where did that come from? And many years ago, I remember sitting in a room by myself. I was doing some editing in a small room. It was very isolated. And I heard a word go through my mind, and the word was Kleenex. But I noticed the word go through my mind, and I thought, where the heck did that word come from? And I started to look around the room, and there was a little tiny sliver between some boxes. And behind on this counter, there was a box of Kleenex. But what happened was my mind got really empty as I was sitting there, and it was looking for something to think. And as I saw myself identify that word on that box between this little sliver of boxes, I realized that my mind was hungry and then it wanted something to think, because I was sitting there editing and I was focusing. But you see, what people don't understand is that they are giving birth to conditions that are based on ideas alone, not on actual problems, not on actual conditions, but they're giving birth through belief in those conditions, in those ideas, into deeper and more terrible problems that don't actually need to exist at all. And the core of that is the initial reaction, which is usually an inferior reaction, which I call resentment. And it means, and here's what happens from the old French, to feel again. It keeps coming up every time. The programming of reacting in the wrong way is reinforced in a domino effect. Each time you get upset, each time somebody, gets their nails into you for whatever reason, into your brain, it reinforces a condition, but you don't necessarily have the problem. What happens is that, remember, it's coming from the outside in, and so the problem does not exist in you until you allow it to exist in you
Yeah.
through
Yeah.
accepting it, believing it, and
They're not saying it, but you feel it. You know they're judging you somehow. But when you're not taking that in, when you have your center, it's almost like you've got a plexiglass up, and it's like, energy can flow from the inside out, but you don't. The outside negative forces from the outside, they hit that plexiglass, they drop off before they even enter your mind. Was it Gandhi that said, I don't let anyone walk through my mind with their dirty feet?
ooh, oh,
Yeah.
that's so good.
Yeah. Yeah. The other is the Zen have a saying that if someone shoots an arrow, don't be there. Yeah. What does that mean? Don't be there. Well, don't identify. Don't identify with your own ego in that situation where you have to rise up and then there it is, the resentment or the fear to shrink back or fight, flight, freeze, all this stuff of survival. It's like, no, you're just right there and you see it, and it doesn't have to impact you. You can choose a response in the moment, and maybe there's something to say. Maybe there's nothing to say, and you just kind of see. You just see, you notice, and you learn a lot by seeing. Part of the other issue is that what you were speaking to of if you're always being resentful and this energy keeps it's resent, you keep resending and recycling, and then you're what you are is you're a resentment waiting, you're an upset waiting to happen. You're walking around in life and you are an upset waiting to happen. It could be anywhere. You're getting gas, at a gas station, and you're trying to get in line there, or someone cuts you off, and right there, boom, you're an upset waiting to happen. You come home, someone says something, or people you work with, they do something they shouldn't have done. Right there, you're an upset waiting to happen. And so the way out, I think what we're pointing to here is, to drop in and be in the practice of living, moving, and breathing from your center. And it's last thing I'll say, and maybe this is moving because it becomes muscle memory, right? It's like you've been trained. Your creature has been trained, like Pavlov's dogs. We were talking about in an earlier episode the other day,
right?
But it's like it's muscle memory. You've been trained and conditioned, bred to be a reaction in life.
Yep.
And so it takes something to undo that. And two things, because now it's just muscle memory. It's so automatic. Mm-hmm. So now you have to develop a new kind of musculature. And maybe you don't have the muscle, but I'll say the muscle called letting go in a moment. Just letting it go, and developing the ability to let it go, give it up, drop it, like in the moment. And you're now beginning to move and breathe from a new place and in a new way, which gives a whole new sets of results and opportunities and pathways in life.
What you just said is so important, because the muscle of letting go is usually not flexed at all. The muscle of holding on, look what happens when you hold on. You constrict. right? You just do this and you constrict your being by holding on. Now, the word resentment, I'm going to go back to the basic meaning of it. Indignation or ill will stemming from a feeling of having been wronged or offended. But here's another part of it. The state of holding something in the mind as a subject of contemplation or of being inclined to reflect upon something, a state of consciousness, conviction, feeling, or impression. So again, we're just talking about holding on, right? But holding on is the exact opposite of letting go. Letting go means you're no longer constricted. You're no longer doing this and flexing. You're letting go. You're allowing out.
Yeah.
You're allowing, as opposed to disallowing by not letting go, you're allowing new energy, right, to flow through you. And
it's a giving up of control.
It really, that's another great point.
Yeah. Now there's maybe a kind of control where you're now, and especially I know from like initially learning to, okay, I'm not just going to be out of control and give into this reactivity to control the situation, to dominate the situation, the person. And I'm also not going to shrink back as a way of controlling the situation, because in reactivity, you're just left with controlling. And then to your point, you end up holding all of that in, and then you become all bound up.
Yes.
Holding all of this energy in, and then you become like the jack in the box. That energy has to go somewhere. It either goes out, right? Yeah. It's outrage, or enraged. Yeah. And it turns in, that energy turns in on yourself. Well, what if that energy flowing and living from all that dark energy was to dissipate, evaporate, to disappear? What if you were overcome that? I mean, I actually think it's probably a healthy exercise to even envision, well, who am I if I lived without all this resentment and all this reactivity and all this fear? Who would I be? Who would I become? What kind of human being would I be if I didn't live that way? And I took on a new way. Well, who would I be? And get curious, get really interested, and start wondering about, well, wait, what if I began taking actions and reactions, responses that were in opposition to the old automatic ways of reacting, conforming, rebelling? What if I were to be and act in ways that were in opposition to those old habitual automatic patterns of reactivity? Who would I be? What would be possible? Who would I become?
Here's the thing, and we've talked about this before, but I call it the suitcase full of bricks. Let's just say that you are walking around with a suitcase full of bricks, and every time you get upset or something bothers you, and you put another brick in the suitcase, as if you needed to walk around with a suitcase full of bricks. Now, so the opposite of holding onto the suitcase full of bricks is to do what? To release it, to let it go. Let go of the suitcase full of bricks, and each one of those bricks has a word on it. It's a word of something or someone that you've responded to, in a way that burdens you.
Yeah.
And so do you really need all of that, by the way? Do you really need any of that? All those things that people have done to you? You see, and so in my life, and you and I have talked about this, I'm simply distancing myself from people who have caused me and continue to try to cause me this kind of response. Because here's the deal. What I realize is the only way they can have me is if I allow them to. The only way they can get me in a position they want me to be in is if I allow them to. If I don't allow them to, well, they're going to get all frustrated. They're going to get angry. They're going to be revengeful. Okay. And this is part of what cancel.
That's their business.
Right. But this is part of what cancel culture is. Cancel culture is these people are trying to exact some kind of revenge or some kind of punishment on people that don't conform to what it is that they think they should be doing. So you don't need any of that in your life.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
because
you don't have it, it has you. So when you realize
Yeah.
it's not you that has the problem is out there, keep it out there, and you're going to live a better life.
Yeah, and you don't even have to be concerned with how the others people live, because I love that saying, from the Bible that revenge is mine,
Yes.
saith the Lord.
Yes, that's right.
Because if you look at that statement, it actually frees you up. You don't have to worry about other people paying the price for their wrongs or their flaws or what they did to you that they shouldn't have done or what they didn't do that they should have done.
Well, wait. Let me inject.
Inject. Yeah.
Because there is a cosmic scale of justice that is constantly in flux, right? And to know that, for lack of a better word, karma actually happens. What people put out ultimately is what comes back to them. And so what you're saying is so important, because you don't have to be involved in any part of that other than not to be a part of the problem anymore.
Yeah. The way to win the game, that game is don't play it.
Don't play it.
Yeah. Don't play it.
That's it.
Yeah. Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. This is good stuff.
Oh, yeah. You don't hear conversations like this anywhere.
Yeah. Not that I know of.
You just don't.
I know of. Yeah. Yeah. It's good stuff. And we're speaking from, just experience, right? Of living life but from a place of seeking, a place of wanting greater understanding.
Yes.
The word understanding to me is a beautiful word, because if you can interpret it, it's to stand under. Understanding is to stand under something greater, something bigger than yourself, the self that you're now operating in. If you access a greater understanding, you're standing under a greater kind of wisdom and knowledge. And then that we could also call it's a communication line to creator, higher power, but the communication line to your inner knowing, your conscience. And then you live in congruence with your conscience. And it's like you're flowing from above, from the inside. It filters down like a river flowing from the top of the mountain down to the sea. The energy is flowing from above through you out to the world. You're flowing from some higher, greater force.
By the way, just because
of love too. There's love in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you use the word congruence, I don't think most people, it's not a word that is the average person even says, well, what's congruence? Well, here's what it means: agreement, harmony, and correspondence. See, when you're in congruence, what are you in congruence with? Are you in congruence with the herd, or are you in congruence with something that is greater than you? And that is a beautiful, an agreement, a harmony, correspondence. What could be better than a congruence with something greater than you? Something that is benevolent, that looks out for you, that cares about you. In the Bible, it says, be still and know that I am God. What God is saying is, I got your back. I have you.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. No, very good. It's, well, you're freed up, and last point here before we wrap up, you're freed up, and one thing to remember, people that want you to conform to them, whether it's the cancel culture people, the social justice warrior people, the call out culture clowns, what they need, like they need you to resist them. They need you to pay attention and react to them. They need that. But when you give them nothing, you give them nothing to give them nothing to resist. Give them nothing. It drives them crazy, and they're left with themselves. They're left holding that hot potato.
By the way, that's a statement that King Leonidas made at the Hot Gates. What he said to his 300 soldiers is, give them nothing.
Who was he?
King Leonidas was he was the king of the Spartans.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when they were fighting the Persians at the Hot Gates, he said, give them nothing, but take from them everything. And when you give somebody nothing, you've actually taken away all that energy that you just described.
All that power.
You've taken away all that power. They don't know how to deal with it. I'm doing that to somebody in my own life right now.
They're left weak. Yeah.
The person is
And you don't have to
losing
do it.
their mind.
You don't have to do anything.
You don't have to do anything.
No, in fact, you don't want to do anything.
No, you don't.
You want to get present.
Amen.
Wake up and be in the presence of love and a higher force.
Yeah.
From the ground of your own being. All right, you all. Thank you. If you've listened this far, thank you. Thank you. If you've got something from this today, please share it, pay it forward, share the show. And we look forward to being with you again. We drop typically pretty consistently. We drop 2 episodes a week. Again, you can check it out on YouTube, Disrupt the Drift. And until next time, keep disrupting and rising above the drift. Challenge the norm and create a new narrative for your life. This is Baron Baptiste signing off. Until next time, stay true, stay bold, stay blessed, and peace be with you.